Hello everyone, I'm tribalkai and welcome to the EDH channel. Thank you to JC24 for backing me on Patreon. If you'd like to support the channel as well, then you can visit Patreon and donate with the link in the description below. Failing that, a like, comment and subscribe is always appreciated. Now, let's have a look at everyone's opening hands. Another land for us. I think we get down the training centre before we see a couple of players scoop, which isn't going to happen because we're up against patrons today, but a good habit to get into on Magic Online. Throw down the Soul Ring and pass at that. The first spell of the game comes from Greedo, and that is a Swiftfoot Boots, and then an Arcane Signet for Valdreig. Don't really see that much point in getting down our commander on turn 2 because we don't have any artifacts or anything, although we could counter something with this, but we're not going to make all that many treasures. I think we go for the Loyal Apprentice and we'll get out a tap land. Then I think Loyal Apprentice will get burned by Torbran anyway, so I don't think it really harms to make an enemy out of Torbran. We'll just go in with the Loyal Apprentice over there. And there is Varragoth, not holding off until turn 4 so that they can get the Swiftfoot Boots on there, so just hoping that Varragoth doesn't get burned here. 3 mana has been held up by Gogo. And speaking of burn, the Aegar player gets down a Hedron Archive, so at least 6 mana there next turn, make that 7 with a Talisman of Creativity. 4 cards left in hand. Now then, are we going to see Torbran next turn? If we are, I think I'd quite like to counter that. Don't think he'll be running Blood Moon or anything like that, but just in case, we'll get down an island. And then we'll take our Loyal Apprentice in down the right hand side to Valdreig this time. Worst case scenario, they don't go for Torbran next turn and we can just Factor Fiction anyway. There is a 4th land there ready for a Torbran, but instead going for Solemn Simulacrum, so it looks like it's Factor Fiction instead. And the Swiftfoot Boots does go on to the Varragoth this turn. That turns in sideways at Valdreig, so he will get a tutor, and that card goes on top of his library. Aegar, the Freezing Flame, coming into play. And a Hammer of Nazan. Yeah, we don't really want to see Hammer of Nazan, I don't think. So, why don't we make some tokens here? Okay, and with everyone tapped out, I think we are safe to go in for our commander here. River's Rebuke might be useful a bit later on, don't really care for using it now. We'll make a token when the Galazeth comes into play, and that is what the Strixhaven treasures look like. Get down a Shivan Reef. Might as well go for Thoughtcast because it's only a single blue mana thanks to all the treasures. That will draw us 2 cards. Alright, there is a Sharding Sphinx. Maybe it's just Reckless Fireweaver this turn. That will entail sacrificing a treasure though. Yeah, we'll get the Reckless Fireweaver out. And then we go to the beginning of combat. The Loyal Apprentice will put a Thopter into play. And that will trigger the Reckless Fireweaver, which deals 1 damage to each opponent whenever an artifact enters. And I don't think I really care particularly about swinging into anyone. We'll just hold back this turn, or this combat phase. There's the Torbran, Thane of Redfell. And Solemn Simulacrum likely going in at Greedo, and it is. A Dread Presence, not sure if that's what they tutored up, but they could get rid of our Loyal Apprentice with that. immediately, playing an Urborg, so all of their lands will be swamps to trigger the Dread Presence. And instead deciding to lose a life and draw a card. They won't be able to tutor with the Varragoth this turn. Bloodfire Colossus, a 6/6, and for a red, and sacrifice 6 damage to each creature and player. Yeah, that's pretty scary. And they can grab themselves a single red source with the Prismatic Vista. And looks like they're just going for it immediately, so let's go fact or fiction. I'll have Greedo split it into different piles. Got a choice between a bunch of blue stuff there. I think I would prioritise the Tezzeret there. Anyhow, we will go for the Tezzeret and the island. And that is a bunch of Aegar triggers. So Val is going up to 10 cards in hand this turn. Doesn't have an infinite hand size though. So we'll have to discard 3 of them. Okay, Preordain, I don't mind. I think we get down the Tezzeret after the board wipe. It could get burned. Gogo still has a grip of 7 and 2 mana held up, but yeah, I don't mind drawing some cards with Tezzeret. We do control a bunch of artifacts thanks to the treasures, so we will draw 2 cards here. Get into Academy Ruins. Actually don't have any artifacts in the bin. Goldspan Dragon is nice though. We'll just go Preordain. Okay, a Time Twister. I don't mind drawing into a Time Twister, so let's go bottom and top. Everyone's still at quite a few cards in hand, so the sooner we can get a Time Twister down, the better. Oh, that's a good one. Chandra, Awakened Inferno. We couldn't counter that anyway. And each opponent gets an emblem saying that this deals a damage to you. The emblem, I don't think the emblem is a red source. Yeah, the emblem isn't red, so we're not going to be lightning bolted, I don't think, when Torbran comes into play, so yeah, that's one saving grace at least, but it's still a damage every turn. Kothafed, Soul Hoarder. When a permanent owned by another player is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, you draw and lose a life. That is a risky one. If we get too many treasures out and their life total is quite low, we could take them out as long as Kothafed's in play. Would entail sacrificing our treasures, but it's worth noting. A Warstorm Surge from Valdrieg deals damage equal to its power to any target whenever a creature enters. I'm guessing this is a Giant's deck after seeing the Bloodfire Colossus. So it's going to be difficult to keep Planeswalkers in play. Okay, Solemn Simulacrum. Do we want the Goldspan Dragon in play? I think we just go for the card draw on Tezzeret first of all. Don't necessarily need to Time Twister while we've got all this card draw available to us. Okay, Psymaster Thopterist. Do we just concentrate on making some Thopter tokens? I think I'd quite like to hit the Chandra with Goldspan Dragon. So let's go for that. And then we'll get to make another treasure token when we attack the Chandra here. So swing in there, make a treasure token, and I wonder if we want to go for our commander and River's Rebuke. I don't think we can afford to do all that. Yeah, I would quite like to go River's Rebuke onto Valdrieg here because he is setting up some big plays. Yeah, I don't want to use a lot of treasures to get down the commander. It would be 1, 2, 3 and 4 and then a couple of treasures. That's 3 in total, we'd only be left with 2. Or maybe it's just Psy. Yeah, let's try Psy, and we'll try and keep as many treasures in play as we can. Psy might make the red players worry enough to get some burn going. Actually, I miscalculated, didn't I? Our treasures can tap for 2 mana, so we would only have lost 2. Still probably wouldn't have done it, because I want to keep as many treasures in play as possible, but yeah, it is noteworthy that we only would have lost 2 there, thanks to them each tapping for 2 mana. Meanwhile, Gogo is up to 8 lands. And there's Torbran again. And again, holding up 2 mana. Yeah, and that's what I thought might happen there. Chandra going down for the minus. I thought Psy might tip the scale in our favour of the board being wiped before we get our commander down again. So, minusing down with the Chandra. I imagine that a creature will come down into Warstorm Surge next turn and finish off her. And just to top it off, it looks like we're going to lose our Tezzeret as well. I've actually been toying with the idea of going for the Time Twister anyway, because I'm not in love with the hand that we've got here. Sharding Sphinx is a pet card. I knew that I shouldn't really add it to this deck, but I've wanted to play with this card for years and never really had a spot for it, so yeah, that's really why I put it in here, which isn't a good enough reason if you're trying to be optimal, but I decided to just shove that in there in the hope that I'd be able to play it, but we're just not going to have the time here, as I thought we wouldn't. Yeah, there we go, the Kothafed taking care of Tezzeret. We got a good few cards out of Tezzeret, so pretty good, saving us some damage and drawing 4 cards I think we got. We're going to really struggle keeping creatures in play in this game because we're up against a couple of burn players. And then there's a mono black player for when things go wrong for them, they can wipe the board as well. And then with 6 mana held up, just deciding to pass the turn over to Valdreig. 8 cards in hand, they did draw from the Kothafed, but just leaving their 8 cards in hand thanks to their unlimited hand size. Basics being mixed up over here, which it would be curious if they had Field of the Dead in this deck, but maybe they do. That's typically what mixing the basics up means. Aegar the Freezing Flame comes back into play with 5 mana held up. And that's a Wallstorm Surge, which will Lightning Bolt the Chandra out of the way. Oh, and this has been manifested somehow. I'm not sure how that happened. Oh, Reality Shift first, was it? Reality Shift might have happened at the end of Greedo's turn, I'm not sure, but the Torbran has been put back into the command zone. Then a Giant's Amulet. And you can create a giant. Does this trigger on tokens? It is whenever a creature enters, so someone can get flame slashed here. So now that is a 4/5 with hexproof, and we get the 4 damage dealt to us. Over to our turn, let's see what we draw here. I am thinking it's our commander and River's Rebuke onto Valdreig this turn. Is it Boilerworks? I don't really care for here, although maybe we can we do both? Let's go for our commander first. We will get a treasure token, so I think that leaves us with enough mana to go for River's Rebuke. Well, we had enough anyway, so we'll go for the bounce land this turn. It can be River's Rebuke first of all. So all the permanents going back to their hand, it's going to take them a turn or 2 to rebuild from that. Let's drop the Is It Boilerworks. Could have gone for the Time Twister here, maybe I should have done, but I like the idea of going Time Twister and then having mana held up to actually do something during the same Time Twister turn. So we'll just push an island back to hand and just represent counter magic. I did tell my opponents before the game that we don't have too much counter magic in this deck. Don't have my usual mana drains and counter spells and things like that. Torbran coming down for what I think is a 3rd time. Greedo at the end of Gogo's turn goes for an exile onto our commander, so this is going to be the problem with Galazeth. I was trying not to build it with a bunch of counter spells and just being generally oppressive, but if we're going to struggle having our commander in play, that might just be how we're forced to make it. This is the problem with commander nowadays, is that it's a bit less of like the janky stuff that you might like to do, and it's more a case of trying to be as optimal and sometimes as oppressive as you can possibly be. Varragoth coming back into play, and they can go for the boots and swing in for a tutor this turn. 8 cards in hand still, and was going to swing in at us, deciding to pull it back and go in at Valdreig instead. Now they did tutor something onto the top, so we need to be wary of Time Twister, although this shuffles everything, doesn't it? Each player shuffles their hand and graveyards into library, so we will mess up their tutor if we go for the Time Twister as well. Hedron Archive. Valdreig beginning to rebuild here. Throwing down the Arcane Signet and then going for Urza's Incubator. Naming Giant, no doubt. We'll also shuffle away the Warstorm Surge from Valdreig's hand as well. Everyone could draw back into the problem stuff that we're looking forward to getting rid of, but we can attempt to not see things like Warstorm Surge again at least. A mere Battle Sphere will give us lots of tokens to tap. We don't have haste on the tokens, unfortunately. Yeah, I think we've got too much in hand that we don't really care about, so let's get down the Academy Ruins and we'll concentrate on getting our commander down again. Make a treasure token again. So now we've got 4 mana for instants and sorceries and a couple of mana there. Let's go for this Time Twister finally. Okay, Mishra's Bauble. We can sacrifice that to draw a card, but it's mainly just in here for mana. Let's go for the Thought Cast here. Just draw it into the cards that we've already seen in both Preordain and Thought Cast. Makes sense to go Preordain first, then we can scry some things away. Okay, Sublime Epiphany. River's Rebuke again. Are we going to keep our commander is the question. I think we might just want to keep both of these. So we'll go like that, go Mishra's Bauble. And we'll go for the Thought Cast here, draw a couple of cards, one of which we know what it is. Okay, we've got the Reckless Fireweaver again. So maybe we just go for that here. Don't think there's anything I particularly care about cloning with the Phyrexian Metamorph at the moment. But yeah, drawing into a lot of the same cards that we've already seen, unfortunately. It's noteworthy that we could look at the top of Greedo's deck when he tutors for something, if he tutors for something, with the Mishra's Bauble. Which I might actually do just for the sake of drawing a card. Yeah, I'm not sure yet. But Go finally untapping with a Torbran in tow. Deciding to swing in. The Torbran goes in at Valdrieg, that'll be 4 commander damage. And then 2 in at Valdrieg as well. Alright, and there is a Wheel of Fortune, so not liking the cards that we drew him into. It'd be nice to keep the Sublime Epiphany, but yeah, I don't think I would have countered this anyway, so I'm glad that I didn't hold up the mana for that. We're going to lose it regardless. Alright, this is more like it. Getting into things like Vault of Catlacan and Howling Mine is good. Get back our Loyal Apprentice. Can tutor some things up with the new Solve the Equation, so yeah, this is more like what I want to see. A Hellkite Courser now. A commander you own from the command zone onto the battlefield gains haste, so just getting that into play for the sake of having a 6/5 by the looks of it. Whip of Erebos can reanimate creatures for a period. They've got a Demon of Dark Schemes in the bin, along with Lord of the Void. Liliana's Contract isn't relevant. Over here, got rid of a Nevinrel's Disc to the wheel. A Braid went down. A couple of lands, Cold Steel Heart. Yeah, so our Time Twister did hurt the red player. And then over here it was Reflections of Lityara. Haven't managed to play with that one yet. Hamelback Goliath, or Hamlet-back Goliath. Talisman, Cyclonic Rift, which is banned in this play group. Tisk Tisk. Alright, now we are eating some damage from Kothafed. And Valdrieg is going to get the Varragoth. Anyway, they did go for the tutor there. And holding up 3 mana with 6 cards in hand, we go around to Valdrieg's turn. The ramp continuing over there, a Thought Vessel. Giant Harbinger. Look for a giant, put it on top of your library. And there is Aegar the Freezing Flame again. They went for, Cyclone Summoner. Return all permanents to their owner's hands, except for giants, wizards and lands. That will get rid of our treasures, so we need to try and get into some kind of counter magic. Well, we've made it round to our turn with our commander intact. We'll just have to see if we can actually keep it in play with this black mana held up. A lightning bolt or a shock will get rid of it as well. Okay, Shimmer Dragon is a means of drawing a lot of cards. We've already got a means of drawing cards though. Or we've already got a bunch of cards in hand, I should say. Let's drop the Arid Mesa, which taps for mana thanks to Urborg. And then I think we're just going straight in for Solve the Equation. That goes through pretty quickly. So we will go for the Expropriate here. And we'll cast the Expropriate. Okay, our vote is for time. We'll take an extra turn here. because I would like to flip round this so that it will tap per artifact we control, which is 9 at the moment. Now all of our opponents should vote for money here so that we can take their permanents. It does feel bad when someone takes your permanent, but it's better than them taking a lot of extra turns in a row. Yeah, so they've all done the right thing and voted for money there. So we'll take the commander away here. They'll get it back with the, it's not there, the Cyclone Summoner anyway, but we might be able to get into some counter magic. And then here, do we want the Swiftfoot Boots? Yeah, I think we'll take the Swiftfoot Boots to try and protect our commander. And then there we will take the Torbran to make the burn much worse. Okay, so now we can go for, is it Boilerworks? And go for Storm the Vault. Then it can be Howling Mine. And we can tap down the Howling Mine so that no one else draws cards as long as we keep our commander in play. That will deal a damage to everyone. It's actually going to be 3 damage to everyone because we've got Torbran. And we'll do 5 commander damage to Valdrieg as well, because that is a red commander. Might as well deal some to Greedo as well. I don't think there's many. There are some black flash creatures, but I wouldn't have thought he'd be running those. So we'll Lightning Bolt Greedo as well. Okay, so Storm the Vault will make some artifacts come into play. And we're really going to play around Torbran and the Reckless Fireweaver here. This will be 6 damage on everyone. So with that we can go for the equip of the Swiftfoot Boots onto our commander. You do gain control of the Swiftfoot Boots obviously, but it doesn't fall off whoever it was equipped to previously. So Greedo won't be able to equip that back onto his stuff now because it's ours. Now then, we do get an extra turn here, so hopefully we can do some good stuff. Don't have any instants and sorceries in hand, unfortunately. We do flip over the Storm the Vault though, which is going to be a lot of mana for us. So we get pinged at the beginning of our extra turn with Chandra, Awakened Inferno. And that is a Great Furnace. Howling Mine will draw us an additional card. Some kind of big instant or sorcery would be nice here. But unfortunately not, just get into a land. So let's play down the artifact so that we can tap the thing that I keep forgetting the name of. The Vault of Catlacan for even more mana. And that also triggers the Reckless Fireweaver. So that will take out Valdrieg here, so we will lose his Aegar. But we're not making use of that anyway. Want to make as many artifacts as we can at this point, so let's throw down the Mind Stone. And the Fireweaver bolts our opponents again. We'll go for the Loyal Apprentice. And then let's tap down the Vault for a blue per artifact we control, which gives us how much mana? 15 mana. Go for the Shimmer Dragon. The video actually messed up from this point onwards, but luckily I could go to the replay section of Magic Online and it actually worked this time, so I'm going to replay the video up to the end point because the video stopped recording from this point onwards. I'll go through it all, but just know, for transparency's sake, it isn't live from this point onwards, so I'm just going to take you through the video and tell you what happened throughout the gameplay up until the end. So with that surplus of mana, we get down the Shimmer Dragon, and then we'll be able to start drawing cards by tapping down a couple of artifacts per card draw, and decide to also get down the Goldspan Dragon. That will make us a token when we swing in with it. It also doubles up the mana that our treasure tokens produce as well. Then decide to tap some artifacts down to draw a card with the Shimmer Dragon. We do tap down the Howling Mine for that, so that when we pass the turn over to our opponents, if we pass a turn over to them this turn, they won't draw a card with that. And again, it's another land, so at this point I kind of give up on the Shimmer Dragon and just decide to guarantee us an artifact. Go for Academy Ruins to put the Phyrexian Metamorph on top, and then we can draw into that with the Shimmermere. And I cast the Phyrexian Metamorph. Want to make extra use of the Torbran here. Can't copy the Torbran because it's legendary, but we can copy the Goldspan Dragon. So copying that, we'll Lightning Bolt all of our opponents because it still counts as an artifact entering. And now we've got 2 hasty flyers in the air that will deal 6 damage apiece, thanks to the Torbran. And then at the beginning of combat, Loyal Apprentice will make a Thopter token, which will lightning bolt our opponents again. And then I actually make an error here, which I didn't capture because the recording messed up, like I said. But I paused on the attack step and was trying to work out where to attack to maximise the amount of damage that is dealt. I'm not entirely sure if we can get rid of Torbran at this point. So I'm just trying to work out what swings where. And then once I've worked it out, I think, okay, let's go through to attacks. I pass priority, not realising that I've already gone through to attacks. Usually I'd pause at the pre-combat step or in the first main phase, but just completely goof here and pass priority to the blocking step so we don't get to attack, which is, yeah, obviously a big error on my part. So, without dealing any damage to attacks, I start frantically trying to deal as much damage to my opponents as possible by drawing into more artifacts, so cracking the Mind Stone, which does lose our opponent a life with Koltha fed. We can definitely get rid of Greedo because he loses a life every time we sacrifice a permanent, and we have plenty of treasures in play. And we draw into Pyrite Spell Bomb, so that will lightning bolt our opponents, and we can sacrifice it to deal 1 to Greedo and then 2 to anywhere else with the Pyrite's ability. And then decide to tap the Pyrite Spell Bomb to the Shimmer Dragon, along with a treasure token, I think, in order to draw a card. And I tap down the Swiftfoot Boots and a treasure, I think, as well, in order to draw another one. So that was Dockside Extortionist and Trinket Mage. We haven't gotten into all that many of the what would be Moxons in this deck, so I decide to cast the Trinket Mage. Surprisingly, Dockside Extortionist actually isn't that good with this board state. So casting the Trinket Mage, and plump for Urza's Bauble because we'll be able to look at our opponent's hand if we want to, and we'll draw some cards with the 2 baubles that we've got in play. And yet again, that lightning bolts our opponent, so all we have to do is sacrifice a treasure if we want to get rid of Greedo at this point. We'll have to do that before he gains life with the whip. But yeah, should have had rid of both of my opponents there, but I passed through the combat step like a fool, so we were just hoping that Gogo doesn't have anything at this point. And he taps a bunch of mana, which is scary, which takes him into Dragon's Approach, so that might give you a rough idea of what he wants to do with this deck. I'm guessing it is a Dragon's Approach deck, if he's got at least one in the deck. So that gets rid of Greedo for us. That's 3 damage to everyone. And then he passes the turn over to us. Gogo very graciously said in the chat anyway, if my memory serves, I think it was him that said it, that we've won this one anyway. It was just one of those weird Magic Online things that we accidentally passed through our combat step. So I'm not sure if he could have done something to us there with 6 cards in hand, and he was just graciously passing the turn back to us, or if he actually just generally didn't have anything. Anyway, we draw into both the Wishing Well and the Capsize. We'll play the Wishing Well to lightning bolt our opponent again, and then end up scrying a... what is that? A Spell Swindle and a Thought Vessel to the bottom. Doesn't really matter at this point, we're about to win. And then we crack the Pyrite Spell Bomb directly at our opponent's face. And that is how the game ends. So, luckily, the Magic Online replay function did actually work this time. So often it doesn't. But we got to see the end of the game, which we wouldn't have done had it not have been for that replay function. So I'm grateful for that working. So hopefully you all enjoyed this one. I have changed up this Galazeth deck a little bit from what I've learned in this video. I went a little bit too hard on some artifact stuff and making artifact creature tokens and stuff like that. We can't really rely on tapping those down for mana straight away because they will have summoning sickness. So I've concentrated more on like a Spellslinger type build. I think I need to try and optimize it a little bit more. It doesn't have low CMC counter spells and artifact removal and stuff like that, so should probably try and shoehorn some of that in. But yeah, if you want to see this deck played again, then you'll have to let me know and we'll see how it performs in the next video. Be sure to leave it a thumbs up and subscribe if you enjoyed it. You can follow the link through to Patreon with the link in the description below. Big thank you to my opponents for supporting on Patreon as well. I'm tribalkai on the EDH channel. Thank you for watching.